Marcus had only been on the job for a few months. 22, soft-spoken, didn't ask questions. He took the night shift at a rural gas station off a forgotten stretch of highway, miles from the next town in either direction. To most, it was the kind of job you took because you needed to disappear for a while. A quiet paycheck, just you, a cash register, and the hum of vending machines. The station itself sat low between two hills, tucked just far enough off the road that you could miss it if you weren't looking. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like insects trapped in a jar. One of the bulbs in the ice machine never stopped flickering. The red neon open sign in the window didn't blink, it pulsed. Too slow, like a heartbeat. Marcus liked it, though. He kept to himself, cleaned the counters, restocked the candy, made a game of guessing what kind of driver would walk in based on the sound of their tires rolling over gravel. Trucker? Local? Someone running from something? You get good at reading people when you're the only one awake for 50 miles. But that night, there were no customers. Not one car pulled in. No truckers asking for coffee. No drunks looking for directions. Just silence. And then, at around 1:17 a.m., he noticed it. Across the road, just beyond the edge of the lot, parked between two bent road signs, was a car. Dark, old, looked like it hadn't moved in hours. At first, Marcus thought it was abandoned. Happens sometimes. People break down and walk to the next town. But the driver's seat was reclined. And every few minutes, the headlights would blink. Once. Just once. Like someone was pressing the remote from inside. Watching. Waiting. Marcus stood by the window for a long time, trying to make out a face behind the windshield. But the glass was too dark. Too still. He even opened the door to hear if the engine was running. Nothing. Just the low hiss of wind passing through the empty pumps. And a feeling, deep in his chest, like the car wasn't waiting to be noticed. It was waiting for him to come outside. Marcus tried to shake it off, told himself the car was probably abandoned. Maybe someone had fallen asleep waiting for a tow truck. Maybe they were just sleeping off a bad night. Maybe. But still, something about it felt off. He went back inside, locked the door, and kept glancing at the monitor hooked up to the single security camera aimed at the pumps. The car wasn't visible from that angle. He hated that. Hated having to turn his back to the window every time he checked the screen. A few minutes passed. Then something happened. The vending machine behind him let out a deep, low whir, like it had restarted itself. Marcus turned, expecting a snack to drop or a light to go out. Instead, the digital display now read 1:17 a.m. Over and over again. The same minute the headlights had blinked. The same time he first noticed the car. He unplugged it, plugged it back in. The machine went dark for a second, then lit back up. 1:17 a.m. Again. That's when the bell rang, the soft chime above the door that signaled a customer had stepped in. But no one had. The door never opened. Marcus stared at it, at the space just inside the doorway where footsteps should have followed, where a voice should have said, "Hey," or "Pump 3. But there was nothing, just the still, heavy air and the faint scent of something old. Wet, like leather that had been left out in the rain. He stepped around the counter, unsure why he felt the need to whisper, "Hello." No answer. But when he looked down, the welcome mat was wet, like someone had tracked in water. Not mud, not oil, just water. He stepped back slowly, returning behind the counter, hands beginning to tremble now. On the camera screen, the pumps were still empty. The lights outside flickered once. Then again. Asterisk, he turned back to the window. The car was gone. No sound, no headlights, no gravel under tires. It had vanished. But just as his heart began to settle, the chime rang again. And this time, from somewhere behind the aisle of motor oil and window cleaner, he heard breathing. Slow, rhythmic, like someone had been there the whole time, just waiting for him to turn his back. Marcus moved slowly, his breath tight, his steps careful, as he crept toward the end of the aisle where he'd heard the breathing. But the moment he reached for the edge of the shelf to peer around, everything went black. The buzz of the lights, the hum of the vending machines, the low droning of the cooler compressor in the back. Gone. The silence hit like a wall. A thick, unnatural silence that made his ears ring. Then came the sound. Footsteps, but not in front of him, not where he was looking. Behind him, not heavy, not rushed, just slow, steady, and far too close. The kind of sound you don't just hear, you feel it vibrate in the center of your chest. Marcus didn't scream. He didn't run. He dropped straight to the floor behind the counter, heart punching against his ribs. He curled up tight, clutching the flashlight that barely flickered anymore, and listened. Every instinct told him not to move, not to breathe. Whatever it was looking for him now. He squeezed his eyes shut and waited. The footsteps stopped. Then came a whisper. Not a voice he recognized. Not male or female. Just wrong. It said something, he still doesn't remember what, but it sounded like it came from inches away, right next to his ear. When the power returned, everything came back at once. Lights. Hum. The vending machine whirring like nothing happened. Marcus stayed hidden for nearly 10 minutes before crawling to the back office to check the surveillance footage. He scrubbed through the feed. He watched himself pacing, walking to the window, checking the aisles. Then he stopped. Froze. There, on camera, was a moment he didn't remember. A full minute where Marcus stood near the register, talking. His mouth was moving. His head nodded. He even smiled once. But there was no one else there. He was alone the entire time. Morning came slow. The sun's first light barely touched the cracked pavement outside the gas station as the day shift arrived. Marcus was found sitting behind the counter, eyes wide and unblinking, staring at the surveillance monitor. He didn't speak, didn't move, just sat there, frozen in a moment between two worlds. The car across the street, still gone. When asked what happened, Marcus could only whisper one thing. I wasn't alone, but the cameras told a different story. They showed no one. No figure lurking in the shadows. No ghostly visitor. Just Marcus alone. And then, something even more unsettling came to light. Reviewing the footage frame by frame, a faint shimmer appeared, like a ripple in the air, right behind Marcus when he was talking. A presence barely visible. Something unseen, yet undeniably there. No one could explain it. No one could find it. Marcus quit that same day. But the gas station? It still sits there, flickering and waiting, just off that empty highway. And sometimes, when the night is quiet, the headlights blink, once, twice. Eric had worked dozens of warehouses. He was a quiet guy, contract inventory manager, in and out of jobs, no interest in office gossip or long conversations. The kind of man who preferred silence and didn't mind the graveyard shift. He liked numbers, checklists, quiet buildings with nothing but the low hum of ceiling lights and distant forklift beeps echoing through concrete halls. But this place, this warehouse was different. It was massive, the kind of place you could walk for 10 minutes and still be surrounded by steel shelves. The air was dry, the sound bounced off metal, and the security lights always seemed to flicker just once before holding steady. It was the kind of place that felt abandoned, even when it wasn't. His task was simple, an overnight audit of storage zones 30 through 50. Paperwork, barcode scans, inventory tallies. He moved through the units quickly, methodically, until he reached one labeled in red stenciled paint, Unit 47. That's when the jokes from earlier came back to him. Don't get locked in 47, a guy had laughed during handoff. It's always colder in there, probably cursed. Another added, yeah man. One guy quit after pulling a shift alone in that unit. Said he heard breathing. Eric wasn't superstitious. He didn't believe in ghosts, curses, or haunted freezers. But when he swiped his badge and the heavy door slid open, something shifted. The hallway leading into Unit 47 didn't just feel cold, it felt wrong. Like the air hadn't moved in years. His flashlight, fully charged just 20 minutes ago, began to dim as he crossed the threshold. No workers, no machines. Just shelves, frost on the floor, and silence. Heavy pressing silence. Still, a job was a job. He walked in, closed the door behind him, and started counting. But somewhere deep in the unit, something else had started too. Eric had been inside Unit 47 for no more than 15 minutes when the first thing went wrong. He was halfway through counting rows of sealed containers when the temperature dropped. Not by a few degrees, but sharply, instantly. His breath misted in front of him. He looked down at the floor. Frost was creeping toward his boots, fast. Faster than it should have, like a silent spill of ice. He pulled his jacket tighter and turned back to the clipboard, trying to shake the feeling. It had to be a malfunction in the cooling system. It was a freezer unit, after all. But then, the lights above him flickered once. Twice. Then stopped altogether. Total blackness. He stood still. Perfectly still. Somewhere ahead of him, a soft, dragging sound broke the silence. Not footsteps. Not machinery. Something slower. Something being pulled. It echoed through the racks like it had distance, like it was deep inside the unit, but getting closer. Eric tapped his flashlight. It stuttered to life, weak and pale. He swept the beam across the shelves. Empty. Nothing moving. He told himself to finish the scan and get out. He began calling out numbers quietly, anything to break the silence. Container 9128, container 9130. Then came the noise again. This time not dragging, but a sharp, metallic clatter, like something heavy falling from a high shelf. He flinched, turned quickly. Nothing behind him. Nothing on the floor. But now the containers were shifting. He froze as he noticed it. Row by row, the containers to his left had changed position, slightly off angle. Some turned, some now marked with smudges that looked like long, pale fingerprints across the frost. Fingerprints that hadn't been there 5 minutes ago. Eric backed up, whispering under his breath, Okay, just a prank. Just someone messing with me. But the door was still shut, locked from the inside. And his radio? Static. Then he saw the monitor, the portable scanner screen still running his audit. A fresh entry had appeared on the log. New container, 9999, status, breathing. He didn't enter that. He didn't even know that code existed. He wasn't alone anymore. And whatever was with him wasn't there to be counted. Eric's hands were shaking now. Not from the cold, but from the realization that something had changed in that unit. That it was no longer just a cold room filled with steel and silence. Something was interacting with him, responding. He stared at the scanner. New container, 9999, status, breathing. The screen glitched slightly, then flickered again, and the word breathing slowly changed letter by letter until it read, behind you. He spun around, nearly dropping the scanner. His flashlight beam trembled, tracing empty rows of shelves. The air was denser now, like it carried weight. And something else too, a smell, metal, like blood and old rust. Eric took a step back, then another. He didn't even realize he was whispering to himself until he heard his own voice break. No one's here. No one's here. That's when he saw it. Down at the end of the aisle, something moved. Not walked, not ran, just shifted, like it had always been there, but chose that moment to be noticed. A shape, tall but wrong. Too narrow, like it was stretched. It hovered near the wall, almost blending into the shadows. But not quite. It pulsed faintly, like it really was breathing. Eric froze. His heart was pounding so loud he couldn't hear anything else. Then, in complete silence, the shape took a step forward, and another. Slow, measured, and impossibly quiet. Eric ran. He didn't look back. He didn't care about protocol, about the scanner, about finishing the audit. He just needed out. He sprinted past rows of metal, turned corners that suddenly didn't feel familiar. The layout had changed. He knew it had. That final turn he took earlier, it wasn't there anymore. There was just more shelving, more frost, more silence. Behind him, the footsteps began. Soft, uneven, but they followed. He found a door, one he didn't recognize. An old maintenance hatch marked, emergency access only. It looked sealed shut with rust. He slammed his shoulder against it once. Twice. It gave. He fell into the next corridor, breath ragged, knees scraped. The lights in this hallway were different, warmer. And that thing, it didn't follow. But when Eric looked back, the doorway he'd just come through was gone, replaced by smooth, unbroken wall. He staggered out of the warehouse at dawn, covered in frost and blood from a gash on his arm he couldn't explain. Security found him curled behind a delivery truck, eyes wide open, not speaking. It would be 3 days before Eric said a word. And when he did, it was just this. It knew my name. Eric never filed the audit report. He didn't return to finish the job. He didn't even return the equipment. The company terminated his contract 3 days later for abandonment of duty. But that wasn't what made people talk. It was what happened after. A week later, a new inventory manager was assigned to replace him. Same task, same checklist, same overnight audit. He never showed up for day 2. Security found his badge outside the entrance to Unit 47, snapped clean in half. They checked the security footage. At 2:11 a.m., the man is seen walking toward Unit 47 with his tablet in hand. He reaches the keypad, and then he stops. He looks over his shoulder, slowly, like someone called his name, but no one was there. He hesitates, then turns around and walks, deliberately, back down the hall. But as he does, the door to Unit 47 slides open on its own. No one had touched the panel. No one had keyed in the access code. It just opened, and then the feed cuts out. The timestamp resumes 37 minutes later. The hallway is empty. The door to Unit 47 is closed again. They never found the man. No sign of struggle. No prints. His car remained in the lot overnight, locked. Inside his trunk, a printed report form with 47 circled in red ink over and over until it bled through the page. After that, they sealed off the unit. But the story didn't end there. One former supervisor claimed Eric mailed him a package 6 months later. No return address. Inside was a flash drive with a single video file. No title, no date. It was grainy, low resolution. Just a dim view of metal shelves from some handheld camera. For 2 minutes, nothing happens. And then a voice, Eric's voice, barely a whisper. I thought I was scanning containers, but it was scanning me back. The footage cuts to black. That was the last anyone ever heard from him. Unit 47 remains sealed to this day. But sometimes, on night shift rotations, new hires say they hear beeping. Like a scanner. Faint. Coming from the far end of the warehouse. There's nothing back there anymore. Just a wall. Lana was juggling 2 things, college classes by day and a part-time night job at the local automatic car wash. From 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., it was just her, a small booth, and the endless rhythm of cars rolling through the wash cycles. Most nights were quiet, sometimes too quiet. The steady sound of water sprays hitting metal, the low hum of the dryers, and the soft click of machines doing their work. Lana liked the solitude. It gave her time to think, to study during slow periods. But it also meant every creak, every drip of water, stood out sharp in the silence. That night, the air was heavier, thicker, the kind of weight that made her glance around more than usual. And then, just after midnight, a black SUV rolled into the entrance. It was a beast of a vehicle, windows so dark no one could see inside. No headlights, no lights at all, just a silent shadow on wheels. Lana watched as it pulled in, slow, steady, until it stopped in the wash bay. The machines hummed to life, brushes spinning, water spraying. But something was wrong. The SUV didn't move forward to exit the bay. It just stayed there, still, silent. Lana's eyes narrowed. She checked the monitor again. The car wash cycle completed, the brushes stopped turning. But the SUV? It hadn't left, and it never would. The wash cycle ended like every other night. The brushes slowed, water stopped spraying, and the dryers kicked on with their familiar hum. Lana expected the SUV to roll out of the bay any second, but it didn't. She glanced back at the monitor, heart tightening. The screen showed the bay. Empty. No SUV. No vehicle at all. Confused, Lana rubbed her eyes and rewound the footage. Frame by frame, the camera told a different story, one that didn't match what she had just witnessed with her own eyes. The black SUV never actually entered the wash bay, but she swore she saw it, felt it, watched it pull in. A cold knot twisted in her stomach. That's when she noticed something new, water, dripping near the edge of her booth. Slow, irregular drops hitting the concrete floor. Lana stood, squinting into the dim light, and followed the trail. It led past the vending machine, past the drying section, and right to the empty wash bay where the SUV should have been. No car, just a dark, wet floor and the faint sound of dripping water. She turned sharply, startled by a sudden slam. The door behind her had shut, hard. The lights flickered once, twice. Then everything went black. The humming machines, the dripping water, even the faint air movement stopped. Lana was left alone with the silence. And the darkness. Lana's breath caught in the pitch-black booth as the silence wrapped around her like a heavy shroud. No hum of machines. No dripping water. Nothing but the pounding of her own heart echoing in her ears. She fumbled for the emergency light switch, fingers trembling. But the panel was cold, unresponsive. The darkness was complete. Then, from somewhere deep within the empty bay, a voice whispered her name. Not a shout, not a call, just a slow, deliberate whisper. Almost a breath. Lana, she froze. Her skin prickled. The air shifted, thickening, closing in. The voice came again, closer this time, just beyond the doorframe. Lana, panic surged. She spun toward the sound, but all she saw was black. A wet, cold sensation brushed her arm. She yelped, trying to pull away, but the darkness seemed to clutch tighter, colder. The booth door slammed shut behind her. She slammed her fists against the glass, her breath rapid and ragged. The lights flickered once, just for a moment, enough to reveal the outline of a tall, featureless figure standing in the wash bay, staring at her with empty, black windows where eyes should be. Then the lights died again, plunging her into darkness deeper than before. Lana screamed, once, twice, but the night swallowed her cries, and the car wash held its breath. When the morning shift arrived, Lana was nowhere to be found. The booth stood empty, lights flickering weakly as if sighing in relief. Her personal belongings were still there, her jacket folded neatly, her wallet and phone on the counter. But Lana herself? Gone. Security footage told a haunting tale. It showed Lana moving through her shift as usual, checking equipment, logging activity, the silent rhythm of her work. Then, during the last wash cycle, the cameras captured her walking out of the booth and straight into the black SUV. The strange vehicle she had sworn she saw enter the bay, except the footage showed it had never arrived. No wheels turning, no engine noise. Just Lana, stepping into thin air. No traces, no clues. Days later, when Lana finally reappeared, she was found curled inside the supply closet, soaked through and shaking, unable to explain where she'd been or what had happened. The wet footprints leading from the wash bay to the closet remained, a silent, chilling reminder. To this day, the car wash stands open for business every night. But some nights, when the wind is just right, workers say they hear the sound of water dripping, footsteps echoing through the empty bays, and a soft whisper calling a name, Lana. Lana. And the black SUV? It's never been seen again, but it's still waiting. They say night shifts are peaceful, but maybe that's just what they want you to believe. Now, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Let me know in the comments below. Which of these night shift stories chilled you the most? Have you ever worked overnight alone and experienced something strange? Share your story. I'm listening. If you love real horror stories that creep into your dreams, hit subscribe. More terrifying accounts, based on true experiences, are dropping soon. And remember, the night doesn't forget.